Once again, it's on.
Welcome back to the Sports Cypher. I'm Maya Akai, Sports Chica. And in the building is Gabe Salgado.
Good evening.
Bears Talk is right there, folks. But before we jump into that, we're going to do the second half of Around the League, the AFC South. And on the line, I have Daniel Lego, who is a sports writer for fansided.com, who's going to break down the AFC South for us. Those are the teams that include the Colts, the Texans, the Titans, and the Jaguars, the team that the Bears actually will see next week. So that's definitely part of that conversation. You'll get a good preview of what to be looking for. How you doing tonight, Daniel?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Glad to have you on. So football has officially started for a lot of people because they needed this. In Chicago, there's nothing else for us to watch. So the preseason just got everybody very excited. So on our show, we go around the league and talk about different teams. And the one team actually that the Bears will see, at least in the preseason, will be the Jacksonville Jaguars next week. But let's start with the Indianapolis Colts, because they're that team that, to me, over the last year or so, made some major changes. As a matter of fact, Andrew Luck, who everyone knows is a very great young quarterback coming along. He had a very short appearance in that game when he went 4 for 5, 53 yards, and pretty much he was off the field. How do the Colts look different? Obviously, Chuck Pagano is back, so he's finally back in the fold. We know how passionate his team is about them. But how are they looking different this year than last year?
Well, I think a lot of people are expecting Andrew Luck to take another step forward because even though he's been very good in games, especially in the playoffs, his stats haven't really looked as good as people have expected. So people are expecting him to improve. But as far as their personnel, I think people are going to realize that they're going to miss Donald Brown a lot. They're going to put a much bigger load on Trent Richardson, and I don't really know if he's ready to do that. And as far as receivers go, they're expecting Reggie Wayne to come back and play as well as he did before, and that's not really a reasonable thing to expect from a player of his age coming off an injury. So they're going to need to hope that Hakeem Nicks can come in and play well, and T.Y. Hilton can take another step forward, and the rookie they drafted out of Mississippi can come in and do well.
Now, is there maybe some controversy or some issues with the running game because they were expecting that Chris Rainey was going to step in for Vic Ballard, who had an ACL injury in camp, and they were kind of deferring to Chris Rainey for that. And it turns out he was released from the team for some odd incident that happened?
Yeah, so actually I'm a graduate of UF, so I know about Chris Rainey going way back from when he was a Gator. And just the fact that he was even on the roster kind of shows how desperate they were at the running back position, especially after Ballard got hurt. So I think they don't really have as much confidence in Richardson as they're trying to publicly display. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the running back position if they can't find another guy to share the load.
Well, my thing about Trent Richardson is this has to be the season he has to show up. Coming from the Browns, okay, last year was that kind of dip, mid-season change. I get that. But it isn't like he's a rookie. So there's no reason coming into this season. His ramp-up period needs to be short. I mean, I really expect for him to step into that role and to dominate because, to me, that was the whole part of making that acquisition last year. So if it's not Richardson in my mind, I'm like, well, who else would it be? So that's kind of interesting. But I noticed, I guess, with Chris Rainey, with the controversy, he made a tweet about it's something to do with a fire extinguisher. Is this correct? That there must have been some horseplay or something goofy. And I guess he was telling on the other person who is still on the roster, but he was kicked off. So I was like, okay. So, Colts overall didn't make too many personnel changes, but you're saying maybe in the running game there might be some issues if Trent Richardson doesn't step to the plate. Okay.
Yeah, and luckily they have Andrew Luck who fixes or hides a lot of his problems, so they'll probably still be pretty okay on offense.
Well, speaking of Andrew Luck, you talk about how people are worried about his stats or lack thereof. Is it just me or are Colts fans still hoping that he'll put up the Peyton Manning-type numbers that they saw for so many years?
I don't know if the Colt fans are expecting that. I think they're pretty happy with the production they're getting out of him. Just the fans are, at least, because he's winning games. But I think a lot of the analysts and the draftniks and people who expected him to become an elite quarterback are expecting him to increase his completion percentage and get his touchdown-interception ratio up. And a lot of that doesn't have to do with him. He has really poor offensive line play. Some of his weapons aren't always available, as we see with Reggie Wayne and some of the other guys getting hurt and just not playing well. So I think fans in general are happy with him. That's kind of the vibe I kind of get out of Indy. But I think everyone else expects him to do a little bit better.
We are talking AFC South with Daniel Lago, who is a NFL writer for the Fansided.com. Any concerns about protection with Luck? Because I know that Donald Thomas re-injured his, I think it was his quadricep, and he's going to be out for the season. And he's the left guard. Any concerns that Luck is not going to get the protection that he needs?
I think Luck is one of those quarterbacks that he can kind of adapt to whatever offensive line is in front of him, kind of like how Manning is just able to shift around in the pocket and make his drop back so short that it doesn't really matter how bad the offensive line is. So the Colts are lucky in the sense that he knows how to move in the pocket and kind of can throw on the run. But it might start to become a concern if he keeps getting hit more and more, because I don't know if Andrew Luck seems indestructible, but I don't know if he is.
Okay, let's talk the Houston Texans, who lose 32-0 to Arizona. Now, granted, we anticipated there was going to be a little bit of hiccups with the Texans because you got a new head coach in Bill O'Brien. Obviously, the big controversy with Kubiak getting the boot. New quarterback, obviously, in Ryan Fitzpatrick. But, man, did they not look very organized in what was going on.
Yeah, the quarterback play was not good from the Texans, and I think we all kind of expected that. I think some people had too high of expectations just because they think Bill O'Brien is a quarterback guru, but he really doesn't have a lot to work with. You know, they kind of took a shot in the dark in the draft with Tom Savage, and maybe he'll develop a few years down the road. But Ryan Fitzpatrick is a guy that we know what he is. He's a pretty decent backup, but he's a guy who, when he's a starter, just doesn't win games and doesn't produce pretty good statistics. So,
now, I mean, granted, this is the game where they were missing, obviously, Andre Johnson, your key wide receiver, Arian Foster, your running game wasn't there. Defensively, Jonathan Joseph wasn't on the field. So there were some things that made a huge difference. I just thought at least they'd be able to get on the board. Any defensive woes at this point? I mean, offense, they have the key weapons they had last year, obviously, with you're expecting that Andre Johnson and Arian Foster to be key. What do they look like defensively behind the ball?
I think defensively their main concern is probably in the secondary, because we have someone like Jonathan Joseph who's kind of had nagging injuries over the last year or two, and they're kind of expecting him to come back and play at an elite level like he did a few years ago. But the good thing is that their defensive line is probably going to be outstanding, which is going to help mask some of the deficiencies in the secondary. And I think we saw in the first preseason game that Clowney is they're using him on basically completely on the defensive line, even though he's an outside linebacker. So he's going to be a lot of help and run support too. I think their defense overall is going to be pretty good, and hopefully that will help them out, and they won't be playing behind too much. So.
And they had a big draft pick, obviously, in Clowney. How is that playing out? How is he looking so far? How has camp been for him?
Can you repeat that?
With Clowney being the big draft pick, obviously going number one.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think he's going to be an integral part of what they're going to be doing defensively?
Oh yeah, I think they're going to try to play him mainly on the same side as J.J. Watt, and I think that's going to just be a destructive force from the AFC South quarterbacks. And we saw yesterday that's mainly what they did. And Watt already was outstanding by himself on the right side without a lot of help from the outside linebackers. So from all accounts, he's been doing well. He's been putting in a lot of effort. So we'll see how it turns out when the regular season starts.
Now, the Texans also drafted Notre Dame defensive tackle Louis Nix. How's he look so far?
Reports are that he's pretty good. I think some people had concerns about his weight and his conditioning, but he was also injured a lot his last year at Notre Dame. And so hopefully the reports are that he's mostly healthy and that he's doing well. So he should be in the rotation at least. I don't know if he'll start for sure, but he'll be in the mix.
Let's talk about the Jaguars, because obviously the Bears are going to be seeing them next week. Is there a quarterback controversy? Because Blake Bortles looked good. He looked pretty impressive coming out. Does Chad Henne have anything to be worried about? Is his job still pretty secure at this point?
Yeah, so when they drafted Bortles, the company line from the coaching staff and the front office has been that Chad Henne is going to start, and they want him to start the entire year. And hopefully they can just groom Bortles this year, and he'll start in 2015. But so I write for the blog, so I follow the Jaguars very closely, and a lot of the fans do as well. And we kind of know what Henne is at this point. You know, in camp he hasn't been very impressive. Bortles has been improving every day. And then in the first preseason game, I think the main takeaway was that Chad Henne is the same quarterback he's always been, which is someone who could be a pretty okay backup who can come in some situations and play well. But Blake Bortles brings something to the table that the Jaguars just haven't had in a very long time. He was poised in the pocket. He was calm under pressure. He threw strikes down the field, and he was willing to go down the field and throw into tight windows. And I think if the rest of the preseason goes the way Week 1 went, then the coaching staff and the front office is going to have a very hard time justifying starting Chad Henne Week 1 over Blake Bortles.
In your opinion, do you think Blake Bortles will start Week 1? In your personal opinion?
I wouldn't bet on it yet. I want to see how the rest of the preseason goes. But I think it's a safe bet at this point to say that Blake Bortles will start at some point in the season. But if he comes in next week to Chicago and plays well against the second team defense and then gets some reps up with the first team in the third game, then I think that's a possibility.
So everyone knows there's kind of been the distraction with the Jaguars in regards to Justin Blackmon, their key wide receiver, who's been suspended by the NFL. It happened in July for violating their substance abuse policy. Any idea if he's going to be able to get back into the mix?
The Jaguars are basically going into this season and probably even next season with just pretending he's not even on the squad, because that's the way they really need to deal with it. Because even before he got arrested, there were reports that he wasn't really doing what he needed to get reinstated in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I think they were pretty disappointed in kind of how he was acting off the field. He wasn't really in contact with anyone on the team, the coaches, the staff, any other players when they tried to reach out with him. So right now it's kind of more of if he's ever going to play in the league again, let alone with the Jaguars.
What I was impressed with, what I saw some of the game, was that the defensive line, and this is the matchup I'm watching the Bears for next week in the game. I was really impressed, and they've made some changes. They picked up Chris Clemens, who was with Seattle, as well as Red Bryant from Seattle, and they have Ziggy Hood from the Steelers.
Well, there's some huge pickups for them.
Huge pickups, and can I just tell you, defensively, I'm waiting for the matchup because I think that's offensively that'll be a good test for the Bears come next week because I felt they had great pass rush and run blocking. That line, to me, that might be the most improved thing that the Jaguars did in the offseason.
Yeah, that's been the main takeaway from training camp so far is that the defensive line has looked dominant. And you mentioned all the pickups this year. So what actually probably the most important player on defense and probably the guy who's going to have the biggest impact is a free agent they picked up last year from Tennessee, and Derek Marks. And he was the guy yesterday who he came in there and had pressure on every single play. He's from the interior as a defensive tackle. And last year he played well enough to earn a contract extension. This year he looks a little bit bigger, but he hasn't lost a step. So I think he's a player you need to look out for next week.
All right, well, I'm definitely that's the matchup I'm looking at for the defensive line of the Jags against the offense of the Bears. I think that's going to be a must-watch. It'll be some good stuff. Let's wrap up the AFC South and talk about the Titans, who actually beat Green Bay 20-16. So in Chicago, we always smile at that. We can appreciate any time Green Bay has a loss. Obviously, you have a new head coach in Ken Wisenhunt. Thoughts about them? Where are they going? I mean, I know let's talk about them offensively in the run game. So they go pick up Sean Green from the Jets. To me, I don't feel in the long haul that he's that healthy player that's going to make a difference for them because I know in the offseason he had like two knee surgeries. He's got a lot going on. And I'm thinking if he's depending on them to be their number one back, I think that's going to be a problem when you get deep into the season.
No, I think ultimately the guy who's going to get most of the load is the guy they drafted, Bishop Sankey, I think was the first running back pick this year. He looked pretty good in the first preseason game, had some nice receptions and was able to do some things after the catch. But I think they're hoping he can get up to speed with the offense and be the guy that can just start week one for them.
Well, I watched that Tennessee-Green Bay game courtesy of the NFL Network because they replay all the preseason games. Yes. And I did notice that Sankey got a lot of touches on the offense. Didn't get a whole lot of breakthrough runs like I was hoping to because I actually saw him play last year when the Washington came to Chicago to play the Illini. It was a good game. And I noticed that they really want to get him the ball and get him involved in that offense. Do you think that there's a chance that he splits time with the number one guy at the beginning of the season, or do you think he could take over the starting job completely at some point?
I think at some point they're hoping he'll take over the starting job completely. And I think their hope is that the offensive line is going to be good enough so that they can just put him in there and say, run through the holes and just go, because they've invested a lot into the offensive line.
Defensively, I know that they brought in coordinator Ray Horton, who Kent Wisenhunt is big on, and they're looking to move to like a hybrid 3-4 defense. Do they have the personnel to do that, or is that something that's going to probably be a work in project and process for them?
That's a big question because their best player on defense is defensive tackle Jarrell Casey, and he doesn't really have a fit in a 3-4 defense. He was a really good 4-3 inside defensive tackle as a one-gap guy who just rushed in there and rushed the passer. And he doesn't really have a perfect scheme fit in a 3-4, so it's going to be interesting how they incorporate him at defensive end or maybe nose tackle in some packages.
All right, Dan Lego talking about the AFC South for us. Big matchup come next week. I know it's just preseason, but it's a big matchup because it's going to be a good test for the Bears' offense because Jacksonville's their defense is pretty darn good. Daniel, where can my listeners find you to follow your work?
I write for the Fansided Network. The website for the Jaguars is called blackandteal.com, and I also do some work for fansided.com, and you can reach me on Twitter at dlago89.
Good stuff. Well, I look forward to speaking to you in the future again. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. That was Daniel Lago, who is a NFL writer for Fansided.com, covers the Jaguars. I'm telling you, that'll be the next game, though it's just preseason, that you want to watch because it's going to be a good challenge for the Bears offensively. You're going to get to see them flex their muscles a little bit more, especially the pressure they're going to get up the middle.
I'm anxious to see how they look against Blake Bortles because on Friday, and we'll get into this in the next segment, but Mark Sanchez looked pretty good against the Bears defense on Friday. I was surprised.
It seemed like they were a little out of sorts initially, but it seems like it kind of worked itself out. But you're right, there were some good touches in there. I was a little surprised too, but I think there's going to be some good transition moving into week 2. I mean, obviously there were penalties, just different stuff like that obviously is going to get worked out. So we'll see what's going to happen on that. But I do believe that this is the first time that the offense is going to get a good challenge. Especially in regards to pressure on the line. It's because it's that defensive line that, the Jacksonville really is good. Secondary, but the line, we're going to get to see how well they're working together in season 2. And I think that's big. This is a Sports Cypher. I am Maya Kai. When we come back from this next break, we are doing a scoreboard update and hot headlines, as well as we will be talking Bears. Gabe Salgado's in the building. Stay tuned.
Back to the best sports show on the radio, the Sports Cypher.
It's 10:23. I am Gabe Salgado, and it's a little late, but I still got your Sunday sports update for you. We're going to start with a little bit of baseball. On the north side, the Cubs managed to avoid getting swept by the Tampa Bay Rays. They pulled it out in 12 innings, 3-2. Anthony Rizzo hit a walk-off RBI single in the bottom of that inning. Rookie second baseman Javier Baez continues to assert himself into the Cubs lineup. He went 2 for 6 today with an RBI. Left-hander Travis Wood got another quality start. He only allowed 1 run and 4 hits in 6 innings pitched. He also struck out 5 Rays. Carlos Villanueva got the victory, and the Cubs have played extra innings in 6 of their last 12 games, and they've gone 3-3 in those games. The Milwaukee Brewers come to town for a 4-game series starting tomorrow. As for the White Sox, they tried to take 2 from the Seattle Mariners this weekend, but they lost 4-2 at Safeco Field today, so that didn't happen. Not a whole lot of offense. Tyler Flowers and Connor Gillespie were really the only source of offense the Sox had today. They combined to go 2 for 6 with 2 RBIs, and multi-million-dollar left-hander John Danks had another rough outing. He allowed 8 hits and 4 earned runs and 2 walks in 6 1/3. He has given up 28 earned runs in his last 5 starts. The White Sox have gone 11-12 since the All-Star break, and it doesn't get any easier as they head to San Francisco for a 4-game set starting tomorrow. In case you haven't heard by now, the Bears, they won their preseason opener Friday night against the Philadelphia Eagles 34-28, and Maya and I will talk about that momentarily. As for Martellus Bennett from the Bears, he was suspended, didn't play Friday night, but he was reinstated, did practice today, and he told reporters in Bourbonnais, quote, "I could have handled the situation differently." Also returning were safeties Chris Conti and Craig Stelz, no longer on the PUP list, physically unable to perform, that is. They returned to practice. Kyle Long also returned to practice. He had an ankle injury, which kept him out of Friday's game, but there are still some guys that are hurt here. Offensive lineman Brian De La Puente has a MCL sprain. He got pulled from Friday's game with that injury. He's going to be out at least 2 weeks. Evan Britton, another offensive lineman, still hurting with that hamstring. And according to the Chicago Tribune, offensive tackle Jordan Mills was wearing a walking boot. He has not practiced in roughly a week, and it's that surgically repaired foot that he had during the offseason. Remember, he broke his foot in week 17 last year, so he's still dealing with that. And the Chicago Sky defeated the Atlanta Dream 80-69, and they have won 4 of their last 5 since Elena Deladon returned to the lineup July 31st after being out for nearly a month as she was dealing with the effects of Lyme disease. And that is your scoreboard update, and I am Gabe Salgado.
Any penalties, we got to really work hard at assessing why those penalties occurred and make it more of an emphasis over the next week in practice. I thought the tackling early on was good. We had some good, solid, clean tackling and some clean tackling in the perimeter. Offensively, I thought our line did a good job. I think we only had 1 sack. It all starts there with protection, letting the quarterbacks throw the football.
Welcome back, Sports Cypher. That was Mark Trestman discussing his overall pleasure with how the Bears perform, noting some of the mistakes that they made. But Gabe, I think given it's the first preseason game, there's going to be penalties, there's going to be mistakes. Overall, you were covering the game. What was your take on it?
I honestly thought, the refs got a little bit carried away throwing the yellow flags, to be honest with you. I mean, I know there were some rules instituted in the offseason. They want to enforce certain penalties but cut back on others. But really, the Bears had 14 penalties for over 100 yards, and the Eagles had quite a few as well, but I think they just overdid it, to be honest with you. I mean, I understand that, the referees, they're basically at the commissioner's foot, basically, and they have to do what they're told. But at the same time, it's like, and not only did I see that with the Bears game, but other games that I've watched recently, that's been going on a lot as well. So I really think they really need to cut back on that by the time the season starts. So you're going to have, 4-hour football games just to sort out all those penalties. Well,
being that everybody was ready for football, right now I think we'll take 4-hour games just because the buzz about this Bears game, actually just the buzz about the NFL just that whole week, I think people were just happy for football to be back. But you're right, it did seem a little like they were a bit hasty with throwing the flag out. I mean, it's true. But overall, the one thing that I watched that I was really curious to see is how the Bears secondary was going to perform. That was, for me, going into the game, that was my must watch because that's where I felt there may be the biggest deficiency. Let me just say this. Ryan Mundy really, really impressed me. I kind of can take a deep breath now and feel like, you know what, he can handle this, that they do have that good coverage over the top because I was a bit concerned about the secondary, not the defensive line. But I was really impressed with what they got out of him in that game.
Well, I tell you what, the secondary as a whole, did pretty good. And, when you have a solid and healthy front seven in front of you, that's gonna help. And I think the biggest thing to take from the secondary, I mean, obviously, Ryan Mundy proved that he's more than just, a backup or just a special teams guy. Out of the 4 turnovers the Bears defense forced Friday night, 3 of those were from the secondary. So that just goes to show you, how they've improved. And obviously having the good front seven in front of them, help matters as well. Sherrick McManus had an interception. Mm-hmm. And, Adrian Wilson did pretty good as well. He played with the second unit.
He did look good.
You didn't hear too much about him, but, he, from what I could see from my view, and, it doesn't get any better than the press box, I'll be honest with you.
Of course
but,
it doesn't.
Is he going to make the team?
You know what? I definitely think he has a chance. And, honestly, I think that at this point, Steltz and Conti are fighting for their roster lives here. I mean, I wasn't.
So, yes.
When the Bears first took Greg Steltz, I honestly thought, hey, this is a good player because he was solid at LSU. But again, he had an All-American front seven in front of him. He comes to the NFL and he shows that he's not as great as advertised, and it's always been like that. Yeah, he'll get a few special teams tackles here and there, but if you put him out there and you tell him, okay, cover 2, zone or whatever it is you need him to do, he's not as bad as Conti, but he's not going to, be that guy for you either. So I definitely think that, Adrian Wilson and Ryan Mundy and probably Brock Vereen are the front runners for getting those 3 little safety spots.
I do agree because they're athletic. They look good between the hashes. So there should be a point of concern for both Conti and Steltz when you talk about looking at just the energy and the speed that those guys bring to the table. So if I was them, they might want to stay on the PUP list because it might be the safest place if you want to have a roster spot. No, seriously, they might feel a bit more comfortable.
Waive him with an injury settlement.
There you go. But Bears take a big win, 34-28 over Philadelphia. There were some times there were some hiccups in the game, even defensively, where here's the thing. You're right. Mark Sanchez at one point made you say, "Man," and the Jets let you go. But I'll be honest. Let me just say this, and this is totally a side note. And if you got comments about what your first thoughts were, 773-591-1690. What'd you think about your Bears seeing them in their first preseason game? Leaving the Jets might be the best thing that ever happened for Mark Sanchez.
You take a look at the quarterbacks as a whole on the Eagles roster and the type of offense that they run. There's no more Michael Vick.
No.
There's no failed Vince Young experiment. I mean, you take a look at the guys they got. That is not exactly the type of quarterback you're looking for to run that type of offense. So just to see, Mark Sanchez looking comfortable in the pocket for a change.
But I'm going to tell you why I think that is. I think it's about Chip Kelly. I think Chip Kelly probably coaches his team, not to sound funny, kind of how he probably coached at Oregon. He probably doesn't coach over the top, and he plays to their strengths.
Well, that was evident when he instituted that offense.
Yes.
They got the poster boards on the sidelines just like they did at Oregon. It's weird, but
it works.
That's what football's become these days.
It looks like it worked, and and the Bears put up 34 points. And I'll be honest, I've said a couple things, and I'm going to stand by this. One, I do believe they can be an 11-5 team, and I stand firm on that, especially looking at the schedule. I do feel that they can win the division. I feel comfortable with making that statement, and they'll be in the playoffs. And I don't think on any given night, if they play good football and they're healthy, they're a team that probably can put up 30-plus points a night.
Well, they definitely look like it on Friday.
I mean, and even before I saw them, I said, these are things based on looking at that roster and seeing them in training camp, and just not to be mean, looking at strength of schedule, which is huge when you talk about getting into the playoffs. I'm not saying their schedule is easy, but I think pretty much it definitely works to their advantage.
You know what? I will say this, that if there's one thing that really stood out to me the most about Friday was the linebacker position, especially behind, Lance Briggs and the number one guys. I mean, Shea McClellan looked lost out there. He had 2 tackles, but you didn't notice because he was so bad in pass coverage.
But this is new for him.
It's true.
It's game time now.
It's true, but now it's like he's got to learn on the fly now. I mean, he has no choice.
He looked good in training camp, but that's a different scenario. But when it gets game time and it gets real, I think for him, he's got to take it all in from a different perspective now.
Yeah,
he's got heat on his back. There's some linebackers out there: D.D. Lattimore, Christian Jones.
Christian Jones didn't get as many reps as I thought he was going to get.
Right.
D.D. Lattimore was out there on special teams more often than not. But they both got in there. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing both of them make the roster. I mean, I know there was a question with Christian Jones because he had the failed drug test at the combine and things of that nature. But, I mean, he really is a solid football player. D.D. Lattimore, I think he could probably use to drop a few pounds, kind of like to the situation Kasim Green was in last year. But he's a solid player as well. I mean, now – I didn't think he was going to be a high draft pick like Christian Jones should have been, but I thought he could have been a late round draft pick, but he was undrafted as well. So that really surprised me. And then, and the thing is with McClellan, he's got to deliver, especially with the money they're paying him. He's got to deliver with these other guys, trying to take his spot. If he's in, really he hasn't solidified himself a spot yet, but obviously there's guys that are waiting to step in if he can't do it.
I'll tell you, even offensively, when you look at just some of the things, you got to see, obviously, Zach Miller, who was probably a bigger surprise than anyone thought just because of his path getting back on the field. I mean, he's kind of had some, some different kind of twists and turns. So to see him at this level, he actually looked pretty good.
Well, I've seen him play around the league, and when he's healthy, he's good. He's not as fast as you want your tight end to be, but he's got the run blocking down, and I mean he can get open when you're not expecting him to get open. And
but he's a big physical body. He's kind of one of those people that you're right. He's not going to blow you on speed, but he can definitely carry you a couple yards down.
He
down
led
the field.
All receivers that night, 6 catches, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He looks. I mean,
and the thing is, he didn't even start. Dante Rosario started for Martellus Bennett, and. Just taking a look at how Miller came out there, he was with the starters, he was with the second team, and he even got a couple of third team reps before it was all said and done. So he got his chances.
Do you think that helped somebody's attitude?
I'm sure.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. I mean, for Ryan Miller to get the opportunity to be on the field and to prove something, which no one expected the level of production that they got from him. It definitely, I mean, preseason is competition. Now, granted, Martellus Bennett is not going to use his job. But it wouldn't hurt on an attitude adjustment to know you have a player standing behind you that's just as big and as a physical body as you are that can get the job done, and he's hungry for it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for attitude adjustment.
I think we should listen to what Martellus had to say about how he's really sorry about his attitude.
All right, let's hear it.
Super excited to be back, Glad to be out here with the guys, working back to our ultimate goal, which is to get into a championship. So it's good to be back. But I thought the tight ends did me proud, so I was super excited for them. I mean, Zach was out there balling. He had some yak. Dante got a big ball across the middle. Everybody caught a pass except for Mulligan, so I saw Mulligan today. I was like, man, you're the only one that did catch a pass besides myself. I was like, so I thought they played exceptionally well. Anytime you get, I think we have over 100 yards as a tight end group, and to see all those guys get a chance to go out there and do what we've been working on together and helping them perform at a high level, I was super excited for them. So I thought they played well, and I was extremely happy about that. Yeah, I mean, I think everything in life is about, learning lessons. Whatever situation you're going on through life, you always learn from it, whether it's good or bad, wherever it may be. There's always a lesson or more to the story. Yeah, they love me. I mean, I love the guys, and they like being – I got a lot of hugs and high fives and slaps on the butt and all that good stuff and a lot of jokes. And think the moment they saw me, most guys just started laughing because they wanted me to say something funny. But everyone's just been well. They all seem very happy to have me back around. You know, guys say they miss me. I miss the guys, and you know, it's one of the best things about playing this sport is your friendships with the guys that you play with.
Did he repent?
I think that was his way of saying my bad.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely wanted to clean it up. He wanted everybody to know that he wants to be on the field. So Martellus Bennett gets the award for what you're supposed to do PR-wise when you make a big mistake. He came back and he ate humble pie, and that's what you're supposed to do if you want to clean up your image and your act, because people were pretty high on him in the city. Now, granted, no one really quite knew the full details of exactly what happened. I mean, it kind of got piecemealed out. Malcolm and I were talking about this before the show, and it was like it was a couple things. Well, first, you thought it was just about the whole thing that happened with Kyle Fuller. Oh, but then it came out that it was also he got a little chippy with Brandon Marshall. Well, no-no's on getting chippy with Brandon Marshall. That's like right now like kind of the receiving golden boy. And then it kind of got a layer on it from a source that said it was more than that he just had a major attitude in camp, and it might have flowed over to how he interacted with Tressman. And that might have been what dropped the boom for him.
And not just that, there was also, you know, you and I were both down at Bourbonnais, and we saw he didn't always, you know, hustle in practice. He'd catch his pass, and instead of jogging back to the huddle, he walks back to the huddle, you know, taking his time getting on the field. And that's just, you know, I mean, I don't play football anymore, but when I did, I mean, we had to do push-ups if we didn't do that. So it's just like, I mean, you know, and these guys are getting paid, you know, 10,000 times what we're making. So it's just like, you know, all the more reason to, you know, to do what's asked of you and even go above and beyond if necessary. But I think that it was good for him to realize that he messed up and realize that if he kept up that attitude, there's somebody behind him that can do that. But looking forward to the Jaguars game, I want to see how the Bears defense looks against Blake Bortles because they're very high on him. I think he has the potential to start week 1. And just like we talked about earlier, Jacksonville Jaguars rebuilt that defensive line. And with the offensive line that's got some injuries right now, can they hold up against them? So that's going to be the keys to look for. And another thing, too, special teams was just really bad Friday. I mean, the kick coverage was just bad. There was a blocked field goal, and it was just a really rough day for special teams overall.
Well, my thing is this, though. Just out of fairness, it's the first game. You got to kick the rust off. And I think it seemed like by the time they felt a bit more kind of in sync, the game had moved on. So I'm not going to overanalyze. You're right. It's not the special teams that we're used to having.
Right.
And there's difference. That head coach is now gone. There's a new person in there, a new system. So we may see some hiccups that you didn't see for the last several seasons.
You know, I mean, just to see, I mean, even last year when special teams wasn't that great, they were still a solid kick coverage team. And just to see how poorly that was done at times, you know, I really hope they can get that back together because they got a lot of speed on that team this year.
Well, it was more inconsistent than anything else. And it seems like they were quick to bounce back from the mistakes that they made, and I like that. So they may have had, you know, one kick coverage that just was god-awful, but their next time on the field, they made up for that. And I think that was important.
True, but as the season goes on, you can only get away with that so many times.
You could do it in the preseason. That's what I'm saying. This is where you get to make your mistakes. I expect to see far more penalties in the preseason. And it's not so much, I think, always just about discipline. It's about this is game time action. So what you did in camp, I mean, I'm not saying it can't translate into the game, but everybody's got pads and people are hitting. And I think that changes. And not to mention the speed that you're getting of other players, you know, and their strength. So I think you have to make all those adjustments. And that's why I'm happy to see at least with Jacksonville, I'm kind of more looking for Jacksonville's defense versus our offense. And you're kind of just the opposite. You're looking for Jacksonville offense against the Bears defense. So it's actually going to be a pretty good game for them.
Because when I look at what Mark Sanchez was able to do against them, I already think Blake Bortles is a better quarterback than Sanchez. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to handle it, you know, and yeah. And you know, and the thing too, well, of course, we didn't even talk about our quarterbacks. That number 2 job, I think that Clausen might have done just enough.
Oh, I agree.
To surpass Palmer. I mean, just those scoring drives that he led. I mean, it was just amazing to watch.
I agree. This is the Sports Cypher. We are talking Bears. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll wrap up the talk. We will talk quarterbacks. And then in studio, I'm going to have Jennifer Day in to talk about the Hoop Life 3-on-3 Youth Tournament coming up on Saturday. Sports Cypher, Maya Kai, Gabe Salgado. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Back to the best sports show on the radio, the Sports Cypher.
Welcome back to the Sports Cypher. I'm Maya Kai. In studio, I've got Gabe Salgado. We are talking Bears. And to join the conversation, as well as to talk about an upcoming Youth 3-on-3 tournament, I have Jennifer Day.
Hello.
Representing Hoop Live. How are you doing?
I am fabulous. How are you guys?
Good. And she has on this really awesome, Bears, glitzed out tank.
Oh, my God.
Hi,
and it's pink, but it's really, really cute. So we're going to wrap up talking Bears, and I know you're a huge Bears fan, Jennifer. I'm like, we got to bring her in so she can talk about this too. So what was your thoughts on the game? What did you think about the quarterback situation? Because you got to see Cutler, Palmer, Clausen. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a shot. I am so
got a
hopeful. Because of course I remember when the Bears went to the Super Bowl the first time, and I remember how close we've gotten. So I think we have a shot this year. I'm really hoping that pans out.
And how do you feel about Jay Cutler? I mean, when you saw him step on the field and just look like the Jay that I know he's going to be, were you pleased?
I actually was. I mean, I think he could tighten up a little bit, of course. We definitely want him to do that. But, just to start off, preseason, I think that was great.
It looks good. So we were talking at the break. I always say the conversations you don't hear during the break. The backup situation. We all know this is we're in new waters with this, obviously, with Josh McCown going down to Tampa Bay, which, by the way, folks, didn't go too well. But it's not all his fault, by the way, though. He didn't have a good game, but it's not all his fault. I still wish him the best. We'll see him when they get here in a couple weeks.
Right.
Anyways, so we got to see, Palmer in action as well as Clausen, which obviously that's who's battling for 2. Even though I like what I saw in Fales, I know he's really not a contender for the 2 spot. You were saying
Clausen, I know it's only the first preseason game, but just what he showed, I think he managed to push himself ahead of Palmer, and I'm going to tell you why. Palmer, on his very first pass, he wanted to prove to everybody that he could throw the deep ball. That was always a knock on him. He threw about a 25-yard ball down the field. Chris Williams dropped it. Mm-hmm. He tried to go deep again a few plays later, throws an interception. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of rattled his confidence a little bit, so he just started going through the mid-range passes. Mm-hmm. Granted, he did throw a touchdown, but he didn't do what Clausen did.
He had 2.
Those scoring drives, 80 and 87 yards, and especially that 87-yarder, he kept that alive by tucking it and running, and he is not that fast. Right. Got 16 yards on that play, and the next thing he throws a touchdown pass right afterwards. So I think that, his poise, he didn't let anything rattle him. He just kept chipping at it, wasn't afraid to take risks. Obviously, you don't want to take risks on every play, but you're trying to earn a job in this league, and he was just signed in June. He was signed on the last day of minicamp, basically.
Right.
So now you're trying to not only win a job, but you're trying to get yourself in a prime position to stay. So I think he did that. And David Fales, he's going to end up on the practice squad most likely.
Even though I liked him. He was a little gritty, but I mean, it's really between Clausen and Palmer, and I agree with you because Jimmy Clausen went 7 for 13, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Right. And that's what you want to see is no interceptions.
He's got swag.
And then Palmer went 8 for 11, 104 yards, 1 touchdown, but 1 interception. So I just kind of felt when I was watching them, Clausen just seemed like he looked a bit more comfortable kind of running it.
He did.
I just felt like he was more comfortable with it. So that might be the only controversy at quarterback we'll see is who's going to be the number 2. But I personally, I don't see. I'm not going to just make that choice based on just one game. We'll see what happens. Like I said, the Jacksonville game next week, right. Defensively, they're going to be tested. So we'll see what happens in that, and that might kind of expand this, and we'll see a bit more. We know what Jay Cutler's doing. We're not even worried about that.
Right.
So I'll be curious backup-wise, kind of what direction they're going to go. So you feel like 11-5? I'm saying 11-5, Jennifer.
I'm going to go with you because you're always on point.
I'm 11-5. And I'm not just saying that because I'm like just high on the Bears. I'm saying it a lot to do with who they play.
I want to agree with you too, but my thing is I think it's just too early to go that route. I mean,
mind you,
they look good. They look good.
They look excellent.
But, I learned long ago that preseason is just that. It's preseason. You can only learn too much.
Yeah.
But I'm not basing my thoughts just purely on preseason. I mean, I looked at what they had on the roster. I like what I saw in training camp. And then getting them to see how they looked in preseason makes me feel more comfortable with even saying 11-5. Because think about it, defensively, you didn't even have Jared Allen on the field.
No, you didn't.
Offensively, you didn't have Martellus Bennett. I mean, so you were missing some key components that weren't even out there. The run game, I'm not a big Forte person, but I was real happy with Kadeem Carey, let me tell you that. So there's some things that you got to see, and you said, okay.
Well, you also got to look at Jordan Lynch too, because he was also up there with Carey.
Yeah.
I mean, every time he touched the ball, fans cheered, even if it was only like a 2 or 3 yard carry. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that there was his family from Mount Greenwood sitting in those stands.
Probably.
But
local kid doing good, nothing wrong with that.
But I'll tell you what. I mean, the only thing he just needs to work on is just pass blocking and learning the offense. He's got the vision because he showed it in college. Obviously, he knows how to hit the hole.
Right. Yeah.
So, but Kadeem Carey put up some nice numbers. I was actually surprised that Sonoris Perry got a lot of plays. You know, he was undrafted. They actually he was initially invited to rookie minicamp. He wasn't even a roster guy. They signed him out of the rookie minicamp.
Did they really?
Yeah, he wasn't when he showed up to the rookie minicamp. He was not on the roster. So basically, I don't think he got paid for it. But
but it might truly pan out for him. So everybody, the next game, I think you're right. It's going to be a good test for both sides of the ball when Jacksonville rolls into town.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised if the Bears try to run the ball more to get a better look at the running backs. Obviously, the first game they wanted to see what they had with their quarterback situation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think this time you'll probably see more of the running backs, and then everything will just progress from there.
There you go.
So what's your pick? What are you thinking? You think the Bears are going, or what?
Let him go through preseason. He needs.
Yeah,
he's got to marinate on the NFL.
Yeah,
you know, us women will commit. The men, they got to marinate on a heck of a lot longer. Us women be like, it's 11-5. That's it. Men, like, I got to think about it. You got to think about it, baby.
Let me get to week 3 of the preseason. I can probably give you a better idea then.
He can't put a ring on it yet. Anyways, so, hey, I almost forgot. We had really good food before the show. So once again, for the pre-show grub, thank you, Gianna's. It was good. Gianna's is at 1519 East 87th Street. You should check them out. Go online, giannapizza.com, or give them a call, 773-734-9400, and tell them that the Sports Cypher said that their eats is good stuff. I'm going to post some pictures because my salad was the bomb.
Yes, do what we say.
It was good stuff. I'm going to put some pictures so you can see I'm not making this up. It looks as good as it tastes. With that being said, we had a good youth story earlier. We talked about the Jackie Robinson baseball team.
Right.
They're one step away from going to the Little League World Series, which is good stuff. Well, there's other good youth stuff going on in the city. And the reason that Jennifer Day is here with me is because she's come to talk about the second annual Chicago All-City 3-on-3 Youth Basketball Tournament.
Right, absolutely.
So tell us a bit about it. So this is sponsored by Hoop Life, correct?
This is actually, well, it's kind of a combination.
A different stuff.
My client, Nikki Burnett, has basketball moms.
Right.
And one of those divisions of basketball moms is Hoop Life.
Right.
So it's really exciting because this is the second annual youth basketball tournament. So it's free for the kids.
So you can't beat that free.
No, you can't. I mean, we got girls and boys. You can register your team online, www.chicagoallcity3on3.com.
Am I too old to play?
It's for fifth. It's for fifth. It's for 5th to 12th graders. Gabe, you look like an
I'm
awfully
looking for it. We're
12th
still
grader.
open for sponsors. So if you'd like to be one of our sponsors,
you will get no glory. You will get no glory, Gabe, from this. I'm sorry. So for 5th to 12th graders, that's a nice age group, boys and girls, and it's at the very nice Ray and Joan Kroc Center.
Right, 1250 West 119th Street in Chicago. We're really excited because it's hosted by one of the radio station personalities, Demi Lobo.
Demi is so cool. Yes, cool stuff.
She's very, very sweet, and she's really exciting. And then we've got some great sponsors already, but we are always open to more. So just want to shout out to Courtry Trotter, to Gino's Place, to Out of Bounds, to State Farm, the National Black McDonald's Owners Association, HFS, and of course my client, Basketball Moms. We're
doing good stuff for the kids.
Yeah.
Like you said, this is a free tournament.
Right.
It's coming up this Saturday, August 16th. It's from 1 to 5.
Exactly.
At the Ray and Joan Kroc Center, which is at 1250 West 119th Street right here in Chicago.
Right.
Free admission. It's for girls and boys. So it's not just for the boys.
No.
So the girls, if you got some hoop skills.
I play basketball.
You can come out and you can show the boys.
We'll start a team. You and me, we'll start a team.
Yeah, I mean, I actually.
I'm like, you know what? You need to show up. I want to see if you got any skills while you're over talking like this. But it's for the girls too, so the girls should come out there and show what they can do 5th to 12th grade.
Right.
And you still have time because it's only Sunday, so you got almost a good 6 days before you have to get out there. Just go online, like she said, www.chicagoallcity3, the number 3, numeric, on3.com. I will make sure I post this to my Facebook page because I know people are like, I can't remember all that.
Thank you, Maya.
And make sure, if you're looking for something for your kids to do this Saturday, they love basketball.
Right.
Maybe kind of have them like, say it's 3-on-3. So, maybe you got your son and his 3 friends or your daughter and her 2 friends. They want to get out there and they want to go play.
And support. I mean, even if they don't play, come out and support. If you want to be a sponsor, let us know because this is for the youth. And with all the violence that's been going on
Good way
lately,
to keep them out of the streets.
That's what we want to do. I mean, that's what we stand for that. We want to make sure that we give back to the community.
And that's a key thing. Usually a child that has something to do they have a passion, they have a a hobby, something that they're trying to grow into,
Right.
it's less likely they're going to end up in a violent situation because you've given them purpose.
Right.
So, it's rare that you can find some free things. A lot of stuff like this usually has like a registration fee or something like this.
Registration
Here's
fee.
something where there's no fee. All you have to do pretty much is show up. And do they have to have any special uniforms, or can they if they want to? Do they get T-shirts, anything that comes with it?
Well, you know what? If they go on site and they register, then that'll basically take them through all the steps of what we're going to have set up for that day. So then, we'll basically have everything in terms of, what their uniform, what their sizes are, all that good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and then our sponsors are going to be there. So there's some exciting surprises that day.
Oh, that's good. See, it's for the kids. So like I said, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, share this information because it's free, and I'm all about free.
Yeah,
so
and it's
anytime
going to
we
be
can,
fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we really want our kids to take it to the next level, but we have to support them. I mean, it takes a village to raise a child,
These
and
days
so we
especially.
have to do that.
It does. And I heard the Ray and Joan Kroc Center, which I've never been to. I've only driven past it.
It's nice.
Just from the outside, I was like, oh, what a really nice, building to have like this far out south. So
Yeah, and you look at where they put it. Obviously, they could use more facilities like that around the inner
here's the
city.
thing, and use of facilities like that is really key because you show that it has value in the community.
Absolutely.
So getting out there, using that kind of, it shows the people who, raise the money to build it, that see, this has relevance in the community.
Well,
we did this, we did that. So it's important.
Well, that was Nikki's point. She wanted to support not just, the suburban kids, but the inner city youth, the ones that really need our support because of all the things that have been going on. That's why it's so important, with the location being where it is, because we do want to support kids that really need our help.
And especially with youth programs in the inner city, just, not there like they used to be as youth sports programs. So it's a big help.
Absolutely. I mean, the funding, unfortunately, has gone away for a lot of the programs. So that's one of the reasons it's free, because we don't want, there to be the cost to stop the kids
From being able to do it.
from participating in the program.
And especially for the sponsors involved, it shows them that there's value to them really, truly giving back to the community.
Right. And that's what I said. I mean, even if there's, more people that would like to join us to become a sponsor this year or, lend a hand, come out and support, we definitely look forward to that. And they can also contact me. I'm Jennifer Day. You can reach me at jday@daylightmediacorp.com. If you have any more questions about it, I'll be more than happy to answer those questions.
So it is another great event, a weekend. Let's get the kids in there, 1 to 5, do something fun, let them show their little basketball skills. And here's the thing, this is kind of exciting because there's a lot of basketball going on right now. You've got Team USA is going to start practicing here in town on Thursday, so we all know the basketball buzz is kind of bubbling up.
Yeah.
Then Nike is having their World Basketball Tournament, which they built this great sports complex on 63rd. Have you seen it?
I heard you talk about it earlier. I didn't even know it was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I initially didn't know what it was when I drove by it. I was like, what's that? And then all of a sudden I saw a billboard.
Where is it? 63rd and what?
I'm really bad with it. I'm not from the city, so I can't tell you
Where
what
the
street.
where the boys play the bongos, over near the point.
Okay, but I don't know what that street is, so I don't know. what to
Over
tell you.
near the Lakeshore Drive?
Yeah,
Is it that?
Oh, really?
yeah, it's huge.
No, all you have to do is say near there, yeah, because that's where the boats are.
The boats. And that's a good point because that was the reason I was actually in the area.
I'm thinking
I was like,
63rd and Hayes,
and actually, I was thinking I probably just could have said Lakeshore Drive, but I was trying to think of the other street that kind of boxed it in. And I guess if I just,
It's
check
over
it out.
there?
My thing is that
that's
it is
cool.
a key location. It's huge. And my thing is, I really want that to go without a hitch because it sends a big message that Nike is willing to invest this really nice complex to have this event down there. And I'm not sure how much, like I said, I didn't know what it was. I'm like, what's that? And then I saw the billboard like the next day.
Well, I'm going to check it out because we do pop-up shops.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the great things about Basketball Moms and Basketball Mom Apparel is we want our kids to look good playing basketball.
And they do.
We want our moms to look great.
It's a nice line. It's got some cute little sporty, women like to be cute all the time. So the stuff is like very focused on being a cute basketball mom.
Right. And the guys. I mean, we have
Hoop life stuff, yes.
some new lines out, so we want to make sure that we support that too.
Anything bigger than a 3X by any chance?
We will
Gabe,
make
I'm
sure
done
we
with you
get you
today.
something.
I promise you. Thank you, Jennifer Day, for coming in and talking about this
Thank
fantastic
you,
tournament. I will
Maya.
post it to my Facebook page, so make sure if you've got some kids that want to do a free youth basketball 3-on-3 tournament, get them involved. I got to say thank you to Evan F. Moore, who's from the Daily Herald, covers baseball for them. He stopped in and talked about Cup Sox and about the Jackie Robinson Little League team that's right there, one step away from being in Little League World Series. So thank you for Evan for stopping in. Then we had Damian G. Bell, who's from Sportsline Radio Network. He kicked off NFL Around the League and talked the NFC South for us. And then Daniel Lago, who's an NFL writer for Fansided.com, talked AFC South. Of course, Gabe, you dropped in and brought us up to speed with what's going on with the Bears. So a lot was going on. Thank you to my fantastic production team, to Alfred Beard, who's my new executive producer, Nadia Harrell, my associate producer, Malcolm Rockholds on the
You are listening to a podcast of the Fahey and Chivari Show, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Thursdays, only on SportstownChicago.com.
You're listening to Fahey and Chivari on SportstownChicago.com.
This music is always music to my ears. Welcome back into the Fahey and Chivari Show. And if you're quite the listener of this show, you know what this music means. It's time to bring in our freelance writer, our guy, Gabe Salgado. He joins us on the Illinois Center for Broadcasting hotline. If interested in a career in broadcasting, head on over to beonair.com. Gabe, thanks for joining us. How are you today, man?
Doing good. I think after tonight's game, we're going to find out a lot more about this Bears team.
I would agree so, indeed. This is going to be the second game. Bears have their second preseason game tonight against the Jacksonville Jaguars at Soldier Field at 7 o'clock. One of the main topics about this Bears during the offseason, throughout training camp, and now through as we progress into the preseason, one of the main topics has been who's going to be the number 2 quarterback behind Jay Cutler. It seems as if the Bears have been wanting to push Jimmy Clausen to get and earn that number 2 spot. I want to get your thoughts on Jimmy Clausen and whether or not you think he should be the number two quarterback, or should that role go to Jordan Palmer?
Well, if Clausen performs again like he did last Friday, I think he's definitely deserved it. You see that Clausen's not afraid to take any chances. He has confidence in his throws. He's able to keep drives going. Palmer, on the other hand, just seems inconsistent. He doesn't want to take chances, doesn't like to take chances on big passes because you saw what happened last week. One pass got dropped and another one got intercepted. So I think that, at the end of the day, what it all boils down to is Clausen just has more confidence and looks better out there right now.
Do you foresee Jay Cutler getting more than 2 series this time around? And also, how much of a look are we going to get at David Fales tonight? Because it seems like he might end up on the waiver wire and picked up by another team when it's all said and done.
I think the first quarter sounds like realistic for Jay Cutler. Next week will be the 3rd preseason game, so we'll definitely see him play the entire first half, maybe part of the 3rd quarter. But I think the entire first quarter for Cutler wouldn't be out of the question. As for David Fales, I think he could probably end up on the practice squad. I don't think the Bears will completely let him go, but there's no question that he won't make the active roster this year.
Would the same also go for Jordan Lynch? They go running back out of Northern Illinois. He played quarterback in Northern Illinois, but the Bears have him as a running back. Didn't look so bad in my mind against the Philadelphia Eagles in the time that he was out on the field. Didn't look so bad. But I want to get your thoughts if Jordan Lynch is just going to be maybe a practice squad guy for this year.
Well, I think if he does make the practice squad this year, it's obviously because, they want him to develop into a solid running back. There's been concerns about whether or not, he can handle pass protection, and also the fact that, they want to see if he can contribute on special teams as well. And plus, again, he's switching positions. So it's like, he was used to playing quarterback for so long, and now you're completely changing, what he's doing and, teaching him a completely new position. It doesn't happen overnight. So practice squad for Lynch wouldn't surprise me either.
Freelance writer Gabe Salgado joins us on the Illinois Center for Broadcasting hotline here on Fahey and Chivari. Gabe, who in your mind what is the order for the Bears running back depth chart right now behind Matt Forte?
That's a really tough call because the running game didn't look too good last week. Granted, there was injuries on the offensive line. Kind of didn't help any. And plus, the Bears wanted to show off the passing game more. So I think hopefully, after tonight, if they could run the ball a few more times, we'll get a better idea of where that stands.
I want to switch over to the defensive side of the ball here really quickly. Defensive end Jared Allen is going to make his preseason debut tonight, along with safety Chris Conte. And as we all know, Chris Conte has been getting a lot of ridicule throughout the offseason about the big play he gave up in the last week of the regular season with Randall Cobb and the Packers winning the NFC North by winning that game at Soldier Field against the Bears. But sticking with Jared Allen really quickly before I dive into Chris Conte really quickly with you, Gabe. Jared Allen was, again, making his preseason debut tonight. How much do you think we see out of Jared Allen tonight?
I definitely think we'll see the first few series, if not maybe the entire first quarter. Obviously, they want to see what Allen does in a game, and he's got to get in game shape because he missed a lot of practice last week and didn't suit up against the Eagles. So I think it'll be smart for the Bears to get as many reps out of him as they can.
Looking at the Bears' defense and how well they pressured Nick Foles last week, what are you kind of expecting this week now that Jared Allen's going to be in the game and with Jacksonville kind of trying out their rookie quarterback, Blake Bortles? What do you foresee kind of the storyline being when that happens tonight?
I definitely think it's going to be something interesting to watch. Can Blake Bortles handle the pressure? He's going to get pressured. Jacksonville offensive line is going to have their hands full, so the question will be, can Blake Bortles handle the pressure of a solid defensive line that the Bears have? So that'll be something interesting to watch for sure.
The Jaguars have lost Maurice Jones-Drew in the offseason, and I don't know if replacement is the correct word for it, but they picked up from the Minnesota Vikings Toby Gerhart, the 5-year player out of Stanford. Want to get your thoughts on if the running game is going to take a heavy decline this year, if Toby Gerhart's going to be that guy in the running back position behind whoever the quarterback is, even if it is Blake Bortles.
Well, unless Toby Gerhart can crank out a 1,000-yard season and score, 10 to 20 rushing touchdowns, I definitely think that Jacksonville's going to have to lean on their passing game for this season.
What's the biggest storyline that you're looking for tonight, or what are you trying to isolate, and what are you trying to figure out tonight when you watch this Bears team?
Well, I definitely want to see, how the defense looks, especially against Blake Bortles, because we've seen that Bortles is just getting better and better every week, and I honestly think that he'll be the starter come week one. I definitely want to see if special teams can improve. That's an area that uses improvement. We want to see the running game more. So those are the things that I'll be looking for tonight.
You mentioned that special teams. Sorry, Ryan, I'm cutting you off
there.
Quite
all right.
With that special teams, what exactly does what do the special teams really need to do here in these next few preseason games? What are the biggest the biggest glaring holes that you could see right now with the special teams going into the season?
Honestly, everything. You take a look. They had the blocked field goal last week. They weren't very good in kickoff coverage. They weren't very good in the return game. They really just need to work on everything at this point.
I want to go back to what I was saying earlier. Brought up Jared Allen and got your thoughts on that. Safety Chris Conte is going to also be making his preseason debut tonight. And as I mentioned earlier, we all know what Chris Conte went through in the offseason, all the ridicule, all the criticism, all the doubters that he had out there. There's been talk that does Chris Conte maybe deserve a fresh start somewhere else? And Gabe, I just want to get your thoughts on if this is going to be the year that maybe Chris Conte shuts down those doubters, and if he doesn't, then do we see maybe a potential fresh start for Chris Conte somewhere else?
I think so. I mean, you take a look at just, he hasn't really had the best career since he's been here. He started a lot of games, but hasn't always come through when the Bears have needed him to. And then, the shoulder injury didn't help matters. So I think that unless he has a really strong game tonight, I think that he'll be looking to play somewhere else come September.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier with the quarterback competition in Jacksonville, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne, Shane Morris, you kind of mentioned that you were kind of hinting that it was going to be Blake Bortles' job to win. Jaguars' organization seems to be that they want Bortles to sit for a year and learn behind perhaps Chad Henne, one of the other quarterbacks on the Jaguars roster. Is that realistic, or does that seem kind of ridiculous in your mind? I just want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, Chad Henne, he was an okay quarterback in college, but hasn't really carried that over to the pros. And you take a look at how Jacksonville has struggled at the position over the last few years. And I think that at the end of the day, what's going to end up having to happen is they're going to have Bortles start. I think give them the best chance to win this year.
How surprised are you about the play from tight end Zach Miller? He was in start for Martellus Bennett, who was suspended by the team, as we all know last week. Did not play in the Eagles game, but Zach Miller had 2 touchdowns in the game. Going to that spot with who can back up Martellus Bennett, that was one of the other questions going into training camp. Who's going to be the number 2 tight end sitting behind Martellus Bennett if he was to go down for injury? Zach Miller, in my mind, seems to be that number 2 tight end for the Bears. I want to get your thoughts on Zach Miller. Do you think he's going to be that number 2 tight end for the Bears?
Well, if he keeps putting up numbers like he did last week, he'll definitely work his way towards that. He just needs to get better as a run blocker, but as a receiver, he's done pretty good so far.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that, Gabe. Gabe, we always want to appreciate that, you come on the show and all that. We always appreciate your knowledge. One more thing before we let you go. In college football news, I know you like talking about a lot of Northwestern stuff. I just want to get your thoughts on this. Venric Marquez will not be with the Northwestern football program this season. He's going to be transferring down to somewhere in Houston. Maybe, I don't know if it's home circuit now, but I want to get your thoughts. They're losing Jones. They're one of their big wide receivers, and now that Mark's going to be gone for the season. How depleted is this Northwestern offense going to be now as the season's going to be rolling on here in a couple of weeks?
Well, they got plenty of depth at the running back position. I don't think that'll be a concern, although Benedict Mark is a special type of playmaker, so losing him will probably hurt a little bit. But as for the receiver position, that's a concern because there isn't a whole lot of depth there. So Northwestern's really going to have to find a way to shore up their receiving core. Perhaps maybe they're going to need their running backs to catch more passes out of the backfield. You'll probably have to get a little bit more out of Superback Dan Vitale. So I don't think it's the be-all, end-all, but it's definitely going to be something that's going to have some growing pains early on in the season.
Gabe, we always appreciate you dropping the knowledge. Have a great day, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. You too.
You're listening to Fahey and Chivari on SportsTownChicago.com.